looking deeply to see that happiness and suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering, that true is not possible without understanding and compassion, and that running after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. I am aware that happiness depends on my mental attitude and not on external conditions, and that I can live happily in the present moment simply by remembering that I already have more than enough conditions to be happy. I am committed to practice right livelihood so that I can help reduce the suffering of living beings on and stop contributing to climate change. True love. Aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct, I am committed to cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that sexual desire is not love and that sexual activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others, I am determined not to engage in sexual relations without true love and a deep, long-term commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Seeing that body and mind are one, I am committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness, which are the four basic elements of true love. For my greater happiness and greater happiness of others, practicing true love, we know that we will continue beautifully into the future. Loving speech and deep listening. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I am committed to cultivating loving speech and compassionate listening in order to relieve suffering and to promote reconciliation and peace in myself and among other people, ethnic and religious groups and nations. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I am committed to speaking truthfully using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When anger is manifesting in me, I am determined not to speak. I will practice mindful breathing and walk in order to recognize and to look deeply into my anger. I know that the roots of anger can be found in my wrong perceptions and lack of understanding of suffering in myself and in other persons. I will speak and listen in a way that can help myself and other persons to transform suffering and see the way out of difficult situations. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know will be certain and not utter words that can be cause division or discord. I will practice right diligence to nourish my capacity for understanding, love, joy, and inclusiveness, and gradually transform anger, violence, and fear that lie deep in my consciousness. Nourishment and healing. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption, I am committed to cultivating good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, and my society by practicing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I will practice looking deeply into how I consume the four kinds of nutrients, namely edible foods, sense impressions, violations, and consciousness. I am determined not to gamble or to use alcohol, drugs, or any other products which contain toxins such as certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I will practice coming back to the present moment to be in touch with the refreshing, healing, and nourishing elements in me and around me, not letting regrets and sorrow drag me back into the past, nor letting anxieties, fear, or craving pull me out of the present moment. I am determined not to try to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will contemplate interbeing and consume in a way that preserves peace, joy, and well-being in my body and consciousness, and in the collective body and consciousness of my family, my society, and earth.
We'll now maintain noble silence. At this time, I'd ask the incense lighters to please come forward. And we say, in gratitude, we offer this incense throughout space and time to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May it be fragrant as earth herself, reflecting careful efforts, wholehearted awareness, and the fruit of understanding slowly ripening. May we and all beings be companions of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May we awaken from forgetfulness and realize our true home. Hello, everybody. I'm Shinkyu. I'm a Dharma teacher here at the temple, and I teach in the Soto Zen School of Japanese Buddhism. It's good to see you. We have almost a full, well, pretty close to a full place. Nice. I will read a couple courtesy announcements real quick, if I can find them. Families with small children are welcome to use the downstairs area for their needs. There's a water fountain and cups available for water down there. If you find that there's a need for seats or for family members who like to sit together, please adjust your seats accordingly. I remind the Sangha members not to walk across the front of the dais during the service. If you need to, please use the back. And we chant at a medium, upbeat tempo to breathe life into the sutra. It's not meant to be a funeral dirge. So at this time, I would invite everybody to stand up and greet each other silently with bows.
I go for refuge to Buddha, my deeply awakened mind, the living source of understanding and compassion, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to Dharma, the path of mindful living, leading to healing, joy, and enlightenment, the way of peace, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the loving and supportive community of practice, realizing harmony, awareness, and liberation, which must be cultivated to be known fully. I am aware that the three jewels are within my heart. I vow to realize them. I vow to understand living beings and their suffering. I vow to cultivate loving kindness and compassion and to practice joy and equanimity. I vow to live simply and sanely, content with few possessions, and to keep my body healthy. I vow to let go of all worry and anxiety in order to be light and free. I am aware that I owe so much to my parents, teachers, friends, and all beings. I vow to be worthy of their trust, to practice wholeheartedly, so that understanding and compassion will flower, and I can help living beings be free from their suffering. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha support my efforts. May the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha support my efforts. Practice of prajna, paramita, receive the emptiness of all five skandhas, and delivered all beings from their suffering. O Shariputra, emptiness, no other than form. Form is emptiness, emptiness form. The same is true of feeling, thought, impulse, and consciousness. O Shariputra, all dharmas are empty. They are not born nor annihilated. They are not defiled nor immaculate. They do not increase nor decrease. So in emptiness, no form, no feeling, no thought, no impulse, no consciousness. No eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No form, sound, smell, taste, touch, or objects of mind. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance, nor extinction of ignorance. No old age and death, nor extinction of them. No suffering, no cause of suffering. No cease from suffering, no path to the out of suffering. No knowledge, no attainment, no realization, for there is nothing to attain. The Bodhisattva holds on to nothing but prajna, paramita. Therefore the mind is clear of any delusive hindrance. Without hindrance there is no fear. Away from all perverted views, one reaches final nirvana. All through the past, present, and future, through faith in prajna, paramita, attain to the highest perfect enlightenment. Know then the prajna, paramita, is the great Dharani, the radiant fearless mantram, the utmost supreme mantram, which is capable of allaying all pain. This is true beyond all doubt. Proclaim now the highest wisdom, the prajna, paramita, gate, 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 Samgate, Bodhisattva. Gate, 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 Samgate, Bodhisattva. Gate, 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 Samgate, Bodhisattva.
Seated. All right, this talk is called Just This Is It, Dongshan and the Practice of Suchness. One day, as the monk Dongshan was about to take leave of his teacher, the Zen master Yunyan, in order to continue his training elsewhere, he said, "Later on, if I'm asked to describe your genuine image, how should I respond?" Yunyan paused and then said, "Just this is it." At this, Dongshan, who didn't understand, left. Later on, as he stood over a bridge above a stream, he saw his own reflection in the water and had a great realization, intimately understanding the words his teacher had spoken. So this is the enlightenment story of the Zen master Dongshan Liangjie, who's considered the founder of the Dongshan school of Chinese Buddhism, or as it's known in Japan as the Zen school of Mahayana Buddhism, the school that I teach in. He lived from 807 to 869 CE and taught mainly in eastern China. His teachings are one of the main wells from which Zen Master Dogen, the founder of the Japanese Soto Zen school, my school, living about 400 years after Dongshan, drew his inspiration. In order to understand why Dongshan is so important and how his teachings still affect us to this day, we'll take a closer look at this story of his, at the story of his enlightenment. So, once again, one day the monk Dongshan was about to take leave of his teacher, the Zen master Yunyan, in order to continue his training elsewhere. So, what's going on here? Was Dongshan unhappy with Yunyan, or had he learned everything that he could and needed to move on? Dongshan is actually taking part in a very common practice in Chinese and later in Japanese Buddhism. A novice monk would often spend a few years with his first teacher, and then for various reasons, sometimes at the suggestion of the teacher themselves, or if the student was stuck on a particular issue, or if they simply needed to deepen their enlightenment before becoming teachers themselves, they'd seek out another teacher to study with. And then the same process would repeat again. Sometimes the student would get stuck again, and they'd often go back to their original teacher. Other times the student would make a breakthrough and gain enlightenment. For Dongshan here, it seemed that he hadn't made a breakthrough yet, and so he was off searching for another teacher to help him further his practice. At this moment, as Dongshan is taking leave of his teacher, he asks what is just the most standard question of protocol. However, like with typically happens with the Chinese Zen master, the most mundane word or action contains hidden depths. So we begin mid-conversation, it seems, with Dongshan asking, later on, if I'm asked to describe your genuine image, how should I respond? The key word here, or the key words, are genuine image, which have a number of possible meanings. First, it just means a portrait of someone's teacher, which is given out to their students after the teacher's death. You'll still often see these in Zen monasteries where an image, now usually a photograph, of the current teacher's teacher is displayed on an altar of its own. So maybe Dongshan was just asking about a portrait here. Second, it can mean something like one's original face before their parents were born. This is pointing at our true nature, our empty essence, our no self, which means that there's no inherent, unchanging essence of me that exists separate from the rest of reality. So maybe Dongshan is actually asking Yunyan to demonstrate his own enlightenment. Third, going along with this, genuine image could mean the Dharma, or specifically Yunyan's Dharma, the particular way that he teaches. So maybe Dongshan was asking Yunyan to tell him what the essence of his teaching was. Or maybe it was all three. Or maybe Dongshan was setting up a trap, as we like to say in Zen, trying to pull a fast one on his teacher, trying to get him to not act like a Zen master who's always living directly in the present moment, but to instead get him to trip up and give an answer based on his karma, based on his unthinking mental habits. Whichever it was, Yunyan spotted it and delivered a line that was so piercing that people are still quoting it 1,200 years later, which is simply, just this is it, which has a secondary meaning of just this person. So what is it that Yunyan is trying to say? What's he trying to get Dongshan to experience with these words? And although it might not seem like it, Yunyan, the teacher, is pointing at a mistaken conception that Dongshan is holding, namely about the genuine image itself. And how is this? So I'll reiterate. Dongshan is either asking for, one, Yunyan's physical image, 2, Yunyan's true nature, or 2, the essence of Yunyan's teaching. Each of these is something that's been conceptualized by Dongshan, seen by him as existing apart from the very moment in which both he and his teacher were existing at that time. So just this is it, or just this person, answers all 3 of Dongshan's possible meanings. And how so? First, just this person standing before Dongshan is the genuine image of his teacher. It's his living, breathing self right here, right there in that moment. Second, just this is it, is the true face of Yunyan. We often assume that this world of objects is impure, that it's secondary, that the realm of the absolute is primary, pure, and that it exists far away from our everyday lives and concerns. But as we pierce through the veil of conceptions that we spread out over the top of the world, imposing our likes and dislikes on everything that we see and encounter, we realize that we've been mistaken. We see that the ultimate is right here. Nirvana is this moment, if we let our minds and bodies and hearts experience it. And third, just this is it is pointing to this very moment to be connected with the entirety of the universe, functioning seamlessly. This is the essence of Yunyan's teaching. But for all of that, Dongshan still didn't understand. So he simply took his leave and set off on his journey. However, along the way, he happened upon a bridge, and I imagine he stopped halfway up at the peak on top of a beautiful, rural, handmade bridge somewhere in the Rocky Highlands of China. Dongshan, needing to take a rest, but also practicing his mindfulness, looked down into the water and saw something that surprised him. His own face mirrored back up at him through the brilliance of the shimmering summer sunlight. Oh, that's me. The thought must have popped into his head as if of its own volition. It certainly looked like his face. When he raised his eyebrows, it raised its eyebrows. And when he slapped his cheeks, it slapped its cheeks. But he realized that the touch was here and not in the water. And right then, looking down into that face, Dongshan experienced clearly what his teacher Yunyan had been pointing at the very start of his trip. That image of his face was an illusion. It looked like him, but it really wasn't him. It was an image created by his face, the water, the sunlight, his mind, and his karma going all the way back to the beginningless beginning. However, not only was the image of his face in the water an illusion, a construction, but so were these, his own genuine image. He clearly saw his true nature in the gap between what he thought he was and what he actually was, an assemblage of pieces, sensations, images, thoughts, memories, feelings, that only take shape in the mind itself, or as the mind itself, experience itself. He saw that he was like a cart, which is made up of separate pieces, wheels, a bed, sidewalls, a handle. The one thing that united all these separate pieces was the mind. The trick is that the mind needs karma as a guidebook, so to speak, to guide it in its construction of this familiar world of objects that we see all around us. But this is a double-edged sword, because karma is often a cause of dukkha for us, of suffering and dissatisfaction. It leads us to believe that these objects that we see all around us exist separately from ourselves, from our minds that are constructing them. And these objects aren't only simple things like cups or frying pans, but they're everything from international borders up to religious beliefs. In that instance, Dongshan disappeared and only the great everything existed. The truth of no self was experienced intimately, and yet he also experienced that just this is it, just this person. And with that, the final teaching of his master manifested on that bridge. It came to bloom through Dongshan's very life itself, through the interplay of every element, including the water and the sun and the earth and the air, just the entire universe functioning together, creating just this person in just this moment. And in all of that, This tiny little person called Dongshan still existed in the midst of this enormity as that enormity. In a word, he experienced himself as suchness. So the key question becomes, what is suchness? The first thing to remember is that suchness isn't a noun, but it's more like an adverb. It's a way that we experience our lives. But before I really get into it, just allow me to give a slightly more academic definition. So suchness or thusness, as it's sometimes translated, stems from the Pali word ta-ta-ta. You can see this in the Buddhist title of Tathagata, which means thus, the thus come one or the thus gone one. This means the one who's come or appeared right here in this very moment, someone who's woken up to the non-conceptuality of direct experience, or the one who's left conceptuality and attained nirvana, enlightenment. Now, another way to look at it is as the other side of emptiness. We often say that the objects of the world, including ourselves, are empty. Empty of what? Our intrinsic nature, which means that there's nothing inside of us or anything else that fundamentally separates them from anything else. A rose is made up of non-rose pieces, as Thich Nhat Hanh likes to say. Suchness is directly living the experience of the fullness and the boundarylessness left in the wake of realizing emptiness of the self and the world. So the question becomes, how do we manifest this suchness in our lives or as our lives? How can we live suchness? So I believe Sonshin has mentioned this before, but as an illustration, I know that a lot of you have cats. And there's at least one thing that can be said about cats, that they're nothing other than what they are. They don't sit around worrying about whether they're good enough, whether the last thing they said was kind or unkind. They don't experience the second arrow of dukkha, of suffering and dissatisfaction. They might worry about a direct threat or a perceived lack of food in their bowl, but they're not beating themselves up over that lack of food, thinking that it's because they're not good enough at being a cat. This is the experience. This is the bodied manifestation of suchness. And it's not only cats. A tree is also just a tree. And as Zen Master Dogen likes to say, firewood is just firewood, and ash is just ash. Don't say that firewood turns into ash. If you suppose that there's a substance that starts off as firewood and then turns into ash, that's a hidden self. That's something essential that you've tucked away in that concept. If you supposed that you this morning is the same you right now, that's another hidden self. So what do I mean by that? My shirt's the same as this morning. That hasn't changed. But is your shirt yourself? Well, my body's the same hands, same hair. But are my hands and hair the self? Well, my memory is the same. And for argument's sake, let's say that the memory is the same as it was this morning. Is your memory yourself? Well, my mind's the same. And for argument's sake, maybe, but is your mind yourself? You see where I'm going with this? The Buddha, 2,500 years ago, looked out at the world and in at himself and saw that all dharmas, all thoughts and objects and ideas and emotions are not self. They're not me. They're not us. This nowadays, this whole thing we call emptiness. All dharmas are empty. Empty of what? Of self. All objects, ideas, emotions, they're fundamentally not separate. They don't fundamentally exist on their own. Where do they come from? They come from the mind, from citta. But they're also delusion because they propose that we're fundamentally cut off from the world, existing as these tiny little islands called self or called me. But this isn't how a cat thinks. This isn't how a tree thinks, or firewood or ash. They're simply what they are, essenceless, not separate, not worried about bills or the weather or a thoughtless comment. This is also what Dongshan experienced on the bridge when he saw his reflection in the water. He saw the emptiness of self and other, of self and image, of self and self. To live this way is to live a life of suchness. We take everything simply as it is. The uncomfortable wrongness, this fundamental anxiety that we have, this unlocalized sense that things aren't perfect, that things aren't the way that they should be. This isn't a fundamental part of suchness. And yet, with our minds, we do cause it to unnecessarily manifest as suchness. This, in fact, is the definition of dukkha, of suffering and dissatisfaction, which the Buddha said was truly the only real spiritual problem to solve. All others being a distraction, like putting a head on top of a head, as we say in Zen. So, how do we get to this place, to suchness? The trick is that we're already here, right now. Just like it was for Dongshan before he stepped a foot on that bridge. He had suchness. You might hear people say that you're perfect as you are, you don't need to do anything, but the truth is, as perfect as we are fundamentally, we usually have a lot of really hard work to get past our fundamental delusions. That we're these little islands, all alone and separate from everything else. We can find a path through this delusion in meditation, though. In my tradition, we practice zazen, seated meditation, which means that we just sit. And that's it. We sit as suchness. We sit like cats, wholly themselves. We sit wholly as ourselves, wholly as sitting. From inside our sitting, it can be either a furious storm or the calmest, clearest day. Either way, we sit and we realize that we are this very moment, not an island, but this whole gigantic ocean world. You hear a bird chirping? That's you. You're helping to create that chirping. You and the bird and the air and the earth and the universe all coming together. Where's the chirping? It's all chirping. Is your child screaming in the other room when you're trying to meditate? That's you too. As well as the warmth of the air on your skin, the scent of the incense in the air, and the pull of Earth's gravity on your backside. We're not islands, and all these experiences are you. They are suchness. We don't grasp them, we don't push them away, and we don't ignore them. We simply sit and are them. And as I come to the conclusion of this talk, it seems like I haven't mentioned the first precept to abstain from killing even once. But it's actually been the topic of our talk the entire time. When you truly experience that you and the chirping, that you and the bird, that you and your cat who's trying to eat the bird, you and the tree and the air and the world and the universe are all part of this ever-developing, essenceless, impermanent, gigantic everything. Right then, you hear the cries of the world, you experience the truth, the satya, the reality of dukkha, of suffering and dissatisfaction, and suddenly your every step becomes measured, thought through, and hopefully well chosen. This is the holy life that the Buddha Gautama spoke of, and it's what fuels us as bodhisattvas to save all beings. Thank you. And let's see. With that, we can have a period of meditation, unless anyone has a burning question. Okay. Dim the lights. Let's see. It's ready? So with that, we'll move on to joys and concerns. I'll begin. It's a joy to have Sun Shin here, my Dharma sibling. We used to gather together just about every Friday morning at our teacher Shuji's basement, which was, what, 5 minutes from here, 10 minutes from here? Yeah, just off of 28th Street. She, a couple years ago, moved to Kansas, I think, right? And we see each other here, but also see each other online. But the online's fine, but it's nice to see face to face. So I'll open the floor to anyone else. Has either a joy or concern? Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Didn't realize. This is actually my first time here or at any Buddhist temple, and it was quite enlightening, and I'm definitely going to be back.
That's great. Great to have you.
My father is officially a cyborg. They had a surgery last Thursday to get a pacemaker put in, and they're doing really well. So I guess that's a little bit of a concern turned into a joy. So.
I have a joy. I'm taking the preceptors class right now, and the class itself has been really amazing, but finding the support through all of the other preceptors in the class has been even more incredible. So I really recommend, if you ever have the opportunity in the future, to take the preceptors class. It's been pretty life-changing so far. So thank you to all of our teachers and to my fellow preceptors who have been so supportive. So thank you.
I'd like us to hold in our space Morgan. He's at Logic Hospital. He had neck surgery and he's recovering. So if we could just kind of hold him in our hearts and thoughts, that'd be great. Thank you.
I guess that's it. No more. All right. Well, with that, we will take a moment to hold those in our thoughts. All right. With that, we will go over some temple-related announcements. We're officially in October. Let's see. Grand Rapids Buddhist Temple Board meeting. All Sangha members are invited to observe. We'll have one, looks like on Sunday, October 15th from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we meet in the temple and also via Google Meet. There's the Buddhist-based recovery meeting, or meetings, Monday at the temple. You can also join via Zoom. Wednesdays at the Alano Club, 1020 College Avenue Northeast, and Fridays at Garfield Park. You can also join via Zoom. There's the online meditation group that meets Wednesdays from 7:30 to 8:15 p.m. You can also you can only join via Zoom. You can contact Reverend Kunga for more information. We have the Thursday Dharma discussion group from 9:30 to 11 a.m. It meets in the temple. And let's see, Dharma reading and discussion group meets through December 21st, beginning with selections from the Samyutta Nikaya. Please email Reverend Jingsu Ryan Duffield at you can get that email if you need it for more information. And also there's it can be added to the mailing list. Oh, and we also have Ulambana Day, Potluck Sunday October 29th, following Sunday service. Please join us for the potluck reception to celebrate Ulambana Day. Please bring a dessert or snack that serves 6 people. Consider listing the ingredients for those with food preferences, allergies, or sensitivities. And that's it for my announcements. Any further announcements from anyone? Oh, it's a second. I've got a couple.
Good morning. My name is Ellen. It's my turn to do the public service announcement for Dana, which is generosity, very big and important part of our practice. This temple exists solely on generosity. Your time, the goods you may bring, like toilet paper and paper towels, tea bags and such. You may volunteer to be a greeter, somebody who spent a lot of time making those quilts. A lot of time and effort went into a lot of what happens here at the temple. No one receives a paycheck. Everything is by donation, generosity here. Of course, there's the financial end of it. We have Dana boxes here at the temple. There's a black one right there by that little table. There's one right on the other side of these curtains. They both have a QR code, which will take you immediately to a donation spot. If you're watching on YouTube, just below the screen, you'll see a See More, which will do a drop down, also with a donation button. We'll go directly to there. And if you go to our website, zengr.org, there's also a donate button there. So anything you can do to help the temple is definitely a wonderful thing, but also just being here is great. And that's a huge part of your generosity. So thank you for that.
Hello. I just wanted to give one more shout out for the discussion group. It starts on Thursday down in the basement of the temple here, 9:30 a.m. You can email me if you want the reading. We're just going to start with the Samyutta, the first 10 verses. You'll find my email either on the internet, on the website, or in the newsletter. It's going to be really casual, drop in, drop out, come for as much of it as you can or as you will. Thank you.
I think there's one other person. Is there anyone else that had an announcement? Oh.
And I don't get it, it's
Oh.
just for us, we're gonna clean the temple this week, so if I could just ask when we're done, das Abwischen Sabbatans go in the closet, there's little sticky notes, you just put them in there and then the chairs go in, so if we can clean out the space. Thank you.
Let's see. And we will move on to our closing gathas, which are on page 9.
Dharma gates without number, I vow to penetrate. The great way of Buddha, I vow to attain.
For a final, we will face each other. And bow. That's it. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you again soon.